Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Selim, and if you're not familiar with me, I'm the new kid in town. This is the pilot of what we're hoping to become the Harvest ROI podcast. And with me is a familiar face, Dave. Hello.
Hey, Selim, how are you today?
Doing good. Um,
Good.
a good mentor and friend of mine taught me that anytime I join an organization, the best thing I should do first is jump on a call with the founder or the CEO and just learn from him everything I need to know about the organization. So this is kind of what we're doing today. And for anyone listening, thank you for joining us on this amazing journey. So, Dave, what is the core mission of Harvest ROI and how has it evolved as the company has grown?
So the mission at Harvest ROI is to help organizations, whether they're emerging companies that are startups, from mid-sized companies to larger enterprise companies who are lacking operational alignment, lacking operational processes, have broken systems and data, and the teams just can't get aligned on. So one of our specialties and I guess our mission is to really bookend CRM projects, right? First, by driving the alignment on the front end to make sure the teams are all on the same page through really tight processes, really tight data model, and then the adoption on the back end of that project. I've seen a lot of failed CRM projects in my time, and it's one of the things that led me to doing this in the first place was being involved in one in an organization and seeing how difficult it was for them to launch one, which shouldn't have been such a difficult project.
Yeah. You know what I love about everything you've said? That I didn't hear the word HubSpot a single time. Uh, Harvest ROI is a diamond solution partner, but we are not our value proposition is not necessarily around HubSpot, correct?
Correct. HubSpot's a tool. I mean, it's a tool that our team specializes in, and I think we've got some real HubSpot rock stars on the team who can align these processes using the platform. But that's not our core strength. Our core strength is about getting those operational processes defined, and then just applying them through HubSpot and the rest of their tech stack.
Exactly. This is Harvest ROI today, but what inspired you to start Harvest ROI in the first place? What were you originally trying to solve?
So when I started Harvest ROI, it started as we were like a go-to-market growth consultancy, and we would do turnarounds for companies. So we would specialize in turnarounds and growth consultancy, and really looking at everything from how a company or a brand positioned themselves based upon who their ICPs were. And a lot of times just the brand and the product positioning, most people just don't get the message. They don't really understand what they do. And I've seen a lot of people try to get fancy with names and things like that. But again, communicating in the shortest way possible, what is our value proposition? What do we do? Was sort of how we started that go-to-market consultancy. And then the rest from there was, identifying who their ICP was, identifying who their competition was, what their differentiators were, what their value props were. And then really, how would they go to market with that message? And then most importantly, once they had all that aligned, what was the process for managing leads? This is where I was involved with a large national mortgage company, and found that was always the problem. Lots of leads coming in, but how were leads being managed is where I think most companies drop the ball, right? Where does that enter a CRM? What does that data flow look like? How are we dispositioning? How are we nurturing? How are we qualifying all those leads coming through the door?
That is quite a journey from go-to-market consultancy to a diamond tier HubSpot solutions partner today. What are some interesting milestones along that path that you would like to share?
I guess one of the more interesting milestones, like I said, was being involved in a really large scale CRM project that I wasn't leading on, that I was a stakeholder in, and just seeing how the company that went about that did it, and really just soliciting ideas from everybody in the company, but no organized approach to what's the actual process. When we talk about lead management, all leads need an IQ. Right. And I think people forget that. And people don't understand what a lead IQ is. And lead IQ is really simple. It's intent and qualification. So for a lead to become a sales qualified lead for something that's closable, those two things need to be present, right? That prospect needs to be qualified. So think about all inbound leads. People raise their hand, they're showing intent. Our job is to help them. What's the process on which we qualify that lead? Whether that's lead scoring through marketing, whether it's sales, or a BDR or SDR doing that qualification work, how do we get that lead qualified and hand it off to sales in a timely manner? Consequently, if they're doing an outbound approach, right, hopefully they've done the homework to do the research on the companies, the company matches their ICP, but now they need to figure out how to get to the right person and then drive intent, right? So creating that intent to get them to respond, to start that conversation.
That's definitely one of the roadblocks that we help businesses figure out. Are there any other common roadblocks that we help as a team?
Oh yeah, tons. So again, I think a lot of people look towards their CRM to get information, and typically that information that they're looking for, that's what they're struggling with, and they want to blame the tool. They think there's something wrong with the tool. But again, as we talk about, HubSpot, Harvest ROI having a RevOps hierarchy, the foundation of that hierarchy is the data architecture, the data model, right? So you have to start with a strong data model or data architecture so that when we're looking at data, what are we looking at? We're looking at, what do we need to see from segmentation for marketing to be able to send messages and nurture? We're looking to filter for sales opportunities for the sales team to be able to sort through the CRM and understand who's who and where they are in the buyer's journey. We're also looking at data from, different parts of the puzzle, right? So um, individually, salespeople need to have data to understand their pipelines, to understand their funnel. Managers need to have data to understand, how to manage their team, and executives need to have data to forecast and understand where they are in the process. All of that needs to be considered in a data model before processes are even introduced, because those processes, the people and the process alignment is what's going to enrich that data, right? And also systems alignment. If there's third-party systems, enrichment data, things like that coming in, having that solid data foundation is paramount.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned that we bookend these kinds of implementations, and adoption is one of the big struggles that companies have. Why is that the case?
Because I think a lot of people solve problems in a CRM in a vacuum. In other words, they're putting band-aids on, hey, we need this. We have this campaign, let's put this in place. We have this, let's put this in place. And what they fail to understand is that, a business is it's a living organism. It's constantly changing, it's constantly growing. And every once in a while, you need to revisit, what does my end-to-end process look like? Do we have it documented? Does the entire team understand what the beginning of the buyer's journey looks like? When do they become a customer? How do we manage customers? How do we cross-sell, upsell in that buyer's journey? And I think that's missing a lot.
Yeah, and how do we help them get over that challenge?
So our team is, we have something called process architecture workshops. So we help the team and we identify the key stakeholders in the process to identify what their data needs are from a reporting and visibility standpoint. Then we'll start to break down processes beyond the data model workshop into pre-sales. And then again, like I said, pre-sales being divided into what's marketing's function to drive inbound leads and what's the process to qualify them and communicate with them and quickly disposition them along that process. At the same time, understanding what outbound looks like, and workshopping that with the team. And then, what's the handoffs? Because handoffs are critical points in a buyer's journey. And this is where companies fall all the time, is not having a good, clean handoff. It's like running a relay race, but instead of having a choreographed handoff, you're throwing the baton down the field, hoping somebody will catch it.
Yeah.
And, what I always say is that baton is the client, it's the prospect. They need to have a seamless journey around that track. And that's what these architecture workshops are designed to do. So we'll go from a from a what we'll call a pre-sales workshops into sales pipeline workshops. And this could be direct sales. This could be channel partner sales. It could be, e-commerce and how are we tracking those sales. There could be renewals and upsells and cross sells and multiple different sales processes for different companies, and unpacking, what does that look like? What are they doing today? And then how can we enhance that by, introducing best practice, introducing some of the tools they may not be aware of, and then driving that along to post sales, all along working with the key stakeholders to get buy-in during those architecture workshops so they can champion the process. And at the end, ultimately driving alignment and adoption with those teams by having everybody aligned throughout that entire process, from the concept of where we want to go to the journey on how we got there to now rolling it out and having champions, help us with the adoption piece.
Playing a little devil's advocate here, if a skeptical buyer clips this and goes and compares, with other RevOps consultancies and HubSpot agencies, why HarvestROI? What sets us apart from the others?
I think we focus more on the operational pieces of a business than we do on the marketing pieces, right? So when we think about RevOps, we're thinking about marketing operations, we're thinking about sales operations, we're thinking about support and service operations, success operations, and data operations. All of those things set us apart from a lot of other agencies who may start with the idea that, we want to drive leads and marketing, but not the entire operational process that's going to organize their CRM, connect their data, and make these tools more useful for their teams. We work with a lot of companies. I would say 95% of our business comes in on referrals. These referrals could come from HubSpot. These referrals could come from our private equity relationships, right, for portfolio companies. All these things, what they have in common is the same thing. They're either on HubSpot and it's broken, it's not working for them, or they're on another system that's broken, not scalable, not working for them. And what we're really great at is transforming those old systems or broken systems and processes and transforming them into something more useful and scalable for the team to adopt.
Let's dig deeper into that specifically. How do we approach complex implementations and custom architecture differently than others?
I would say that, starting with taking the deeper dive up front. One of the things that we don't do is just jump right into scope with somebody. We want to really dig in through a discovery and understand where their pain points are, what their challenges are, what their goals are, get some context around that. From there, we'll usually do a deep dive audit where we'll spend, a lot of time looking into the portal that they have set up, the connections they have set up, understanding, where they are versus what their goals are, and then spending 90 minutes with them to really unpack all of that and get them a better understanding of, here's why you might be experiencing some of these things. Here's some best practices that may, that could be deployed to sort of help you. Here's some things that we're seeing absent in your portal. All of those things. So not just diagnosing, where you are and what's the scope of what you think needs to happen, but really unpacking what's possible with all the tools and the processes that you have.
I love it. One thing that I've had a contentious conversation in this ecosystem is around partner tiering and accreditations and, all of the nice badges that we hang next to our brands. We are a diamond tier partner and we are 3 times accredited by HubSpot. Do clients care? And should they care?
I think they should care about the accreditations, right? I think the accreditations are important. They show that we've got experience doing these, specific types of work in HubSpot, and we got client validation, and we got HubSpot's validation that we've done this and done this correctly in the past. I think the tiering matters a little bit less, because the tiering is really a combination of, it's a HubSpot score. It's how many clients do we manage? How many portals are we in? And most importantly for HubSpot, it's how much HubSpot do we sell? And like I said, since we're a referral-based only organization where companies are coming to us, most of the time they're set up on the platform. So our sales are mostly upgrades and additional hubs, but we rarely come in and, set up a business on HubSpot from front to back unless they come to us through private equity or another direction. We're really working with a lot of companies who are already on the tool, who are at risk of churn or maybe struggling with their investment or understanding, why do we have all these tools? We don't seem to be using these properly. I think that's the differentiator for us, and why it's kept us from being elite faster than a lot of other organizations.
And do we set our eyes on more accreditations? Do we set our eyes on tiering up? Talk me through like what we envision in the coming months.
I think both. I know we're working on 2 more accreditations this year, so we'll have 5 accreditations before long. The tiering piece, again, it's not something I want to force. It's something that's going to happen naturally and happens with our scale. Again, our job is not to come in here and sell clients software that they don't need. It's to help them getting the maximum value out of the software that they have, and maybe filling the gaps with some upgrades here and there. But again, we're not in the business of software sales. We're in the business of solutions.
I love hearing that, and that mentality is kind of echoed throughout the team, and that's why
Yeah.
I'm excited to be joining this team. Um, for those who don't have the opportunity to experience that culture, can you describe it more? Like, how are we internally, how, like our internal culture, and what makes us unique as a team?
Yeah, I think everybody here is in it for the customer success and the team success. I think when everybody gets with a customer, they get a lot of joy and satisfaction out of, getting them out of this place of frustration and stress, and moving them to a place where they feel like their systems are working for them, and the things that are in their way, their blockers, are removed. So I think there's a lot of satisfaction that people take in the work itself. And I think the team also looks and sees the value out of what we do. We're not curing cancer every day, right? It's not critical like that, but we do promote a lot of job growth, right? So as we align systems and we remove friction for a company and we make it easier for them to market and sell and service, those organizations grow and they add jobs and they add headcount. And that's something that, I like to think that we have a hand in, right? So, and that affects a lot of people, right? Every new job that's created could be an entire livelihood for a family, and it could be a way of life for a family. So it's not just about creating jobs within our own organization, but it's helping other organizations create that growth and new jobs as well.
Yeah. Speaking of new jobs, I know the team is growing and we're looking for more to join. What do you look for in a prospective hire? And another question is, how do we empower team members for success?
So looking for a combination of what I would consider skills and wills, right? So the skills, I'm looking for, or we're looking for, HubSpot nerds. And I say that affectionately because I think everybody that we find who's passionate about what they do consider themselves a little bit of a nerd when it comes to HubSpot and technology. So that needs to be present. The other thing that we're looking for, like I said, is that will. Are they in it for the right reasons? Are they in it for the reasons? Are they looking to drive success for clients? Are they looking to support each other? Are they? So we use a tool called the Berkman to help us identify, not just identify the right people. I think that's the wrong approach. It's really to understand people, what drives them, what motivates them, what creates stress, what do those stress behaviors look like, and how do we best communicate with them. So we're making sure that, on our team, we've got all the people in the right seats. We know exactly how to communicate so that the message is always received. And it helps drive a lot of alignment on our team. And it's one of the things, it's kind of one of our secret sauces in terms of, having this resource and having, we have somebody that the team can go to at any given time. So if they're feeling stress in a project, in a communication with another teammate, we have a resource for them to speak with, to help them understand how they communicate, how the person that they're trying to align with communicates, and constantly refining that process. What that does in turn, it helps our team identify stress behaviors in our clients. So when we're on a project, when we're in a workshop and we're seeing the stress behavior, we know when to stop right? Because when people are in stress, they're not listening, they're not making great decisions, and that's when alignment breaks on a project. So having that, be a core foundation of our team is really helping clients at the same time.
Speaking of core foundations, which one of the Harvest ROI values do you personally connect with the most, and why?
I think, man, I think all of them. It's hard to pick just one, but I think humility, right, is an important one. Humility and collaboration. So, I don't expect everybody on the team to know everything about everything, but collectively we have really strong knowledge base, right? So that goes into collaboration. So when somebody on the team is unsure of something or hasn't done something before, there's always somebody else on the team for them to collaborate with, and we have a very open communication style on the team where we get together, where people communicate via Slack and other methods, office hours, things like that, where they can connect at any given time on a project and share information and share knowledge. And collectively, obviously we're stronger than a single individual or a single consultant managing a project. So when somebody comes and works with Harvest ROI, they're not working with one project manager or one solutions engineer. Ideally, they're working with the entire team through that solutions engineer and project manager.
So the company has grown from a small consultancy. What were some of the biggest challenge you faced scaling the business itself? And can you share a decision that was tough but ultimately shaped our growth for the better?
Um, Man, that's a tough one. I feel like we've grown very organically through the intention of just helping people and putting clients first. But I would say, looking at always advancing the skill set of the team, always looking at driving those accreditations and making us better has helped the company grow. But I think the one thing that we've been very, very intentional about is making sure that every client that we have is 100% satisfied with the work that we've performed. Because honestly, the best way to grow is through the evangelists that you have around you from the people who've interacted with you, right? And by adding that value to both clients and influencers is really how we've grown. So we spend a lot of time, making sure that those people we're adding value to. We're adding value to their lives. We're adding value to their work. We're adding value to everything that we do. I think that's been the intentional piece that we've driven to help us grow.
Speaking of growth, with a lot of trends like AI, automation, and platform unification, what bold bets are we making now to lead in the future?
Yeah, again, so AI probably being one of the most important initiatives. Obviously, businesses, this is going to be one of the areas that eh, the intersection between your CRM and AI is going to be a really critical intersections for a lot of companies as we move forward. Hiring Nico as an AI specialist was a very intentional move for Harvest ROI so that we could help our clients lead and help navigate them through that, ideation of how AI can potentially help their business and enhance their business, and then driving the practical applications and helping clients adopt new technology. So I think that's one of the biggest areas that we're looking at in the future. I think that there's AdoptionHub is another piece, right? So another very intentional thing that we are working on is that what happens after a CRM is implemented for somebody, right? That team, like I said earlier, the team's going to grow. And how do we drive continued adoption? How do we drive continued onboarding? We've created an app called AdoptionHub, which is either a Chrome extension or an Edge extension that rides on top of any cloud-based software that helps us align, again, the processes, the videos, the training, the resources that somebody needs to help drive that adoption so that they're not lost once the CRM is implemented and companies move on and start taking some of this internally. There's the leave behinds that are important that are going to help them onboard it and scale and adopt.
Speaking of AI, everybody is trying to keep up with the new advancements, and you have a lot of parties that have different worries. Some have ethical concerns, some have, operational concerns, some have, general economic and macro concerns. What is our stance around AI use, and how do we ensure that we're communicating that with the world and our clients?
So as we're looking at AI and rolling AI out to clients, we're looking at a couple things. One, we want to make sure that the tools that they have are actually useful, and we're not putting tools out in a sea of AI tools that people are getting bombarded with that may or may not be helpful. Two, we need to make sure that their data is secured and tight, right? So all the data that comes into any AI is in a very secured environment, um, that's not going to be used elsewhere, right? We don't want somebody's data about their business or about their processes or about that going into a larger data model to be used by other teams. So we work on something, the concept of a small private language model, right? So we're limiting the information that gets in there to, predominantly what that AI model needs to know, and then making sure that that model is secured within that organization.
What is your favorite success story from a client project?
Man, there's honestly so many. But I would say it was one of the first clients we worked on. They had purchased HubSpot, hadn't really implemented it, hired us to start that process with them. We worked through two sales leaders during that process to get them launched, to get their team to adopt it. They got a venture capital investment halfway through that project, continued to grow. And then to see that company, see the CEO have an exit, and to see that company become a unicorn, with a company that was, maybe 8 to 10 salespeople when we started, that within a 3-year period they became a unicorn and had a second exit, was probably one of the most satisfying things I've seen.
That's a really exciting story. Um, what is one thing most people do not know about Harvest?
I think there's a lot of things that people don't know about Harvest. I think we're one of HubSpot's best kept secrets. What I would say that what people don't know about Harvest is the people, and how this team works together, how this team collaborates, and why the culture is such a central part of what we do. Again, when people, it's I think I've heard this before. It's like, you have a good culture if people on a Sunday night are looking forward to Monday morning and getting back to work and doing what
Yeah.
they do best, right? Instead of dreading it. And I feel like we have that culture. We've built that culture where people want to come in and do great things for people. We're a client first organization. That's what matters more than anything. It's not about sales. It's not about software. And I think one of the most important things is I think that everybody on this team wants to be of service, right? And I know that sounds like a weird thing to say for a business, but I think if the people in your organization want to be of service to their clients, they're always going to look to add value.
Yeah. And I am making it my mission to introduce these lovely people to the world and make sure they are known to the wider ecosystem. Speaking of ecosystem, HubSpot has been doing a lot of interesting changes around their vision and their direction, going towards an AI first CRM
Mhm.
philosophy. What are your thoughts around that, and how are we best aligning ourselves with that?
So again, I think everything that we do aligns ourselves with that, right? Because in an AI first world, the most important thing is your data, right? So again, the old adage of garbage in, garbage out, right? So for AI to perform at its best, it's working with the information that you're providing to it, right? So if you're giving it bad information, just like on any given report, if the information is not accurate, if there's holes in that data, you're not getting the full picture. You're not getting the entire story. AI performs best when it's loaded with all the information and all the data. So going back to the beginning for an organization, helping them not just build a data model for going forward and processes to manage that data model and enrich that data model and driving the adoption on the team and driving that enablement. It comes back to having solid data architecture and solid processes that are going to continue to enforce that architecture that's going to allow AI to do its best work.
Amazing. This is more of a personal question, but like, what is the best part of your job as CEO here at Harvest?
The best part, it's that's another tough question. Should be an easy question, but there's so many things that I really enjoy about what we do. I really, really enjoy that our company works with organizations to remove them from that place of stress and doubt into a place of solid foundation and scale. I love the culture that we've built, the servant leadership culture that everybody on the team, especially leadership, is here to be a resource for everybody else. Um, and I just, it's satisfying to see all of those things coming together within an organization and seeing that grow organically within a team.
As we're launching this new show, we're still working on what to call it and how to distribute it. But who do you wish listens to this show moving forward? And what are the challenges that you're hoping to help them solve or at least think about?
Man, I in terms of who listens, anybody that could, benefit from it, right? So whether that's an organization that's trying to understand where they are and trying to navigate the scary idea of hiring a partner to help them implement or optimize or transform their CRM or their data model or their processes, to understand that, it's a process in and of itself, right? Um, as an organization, everything we do, we problem solve within frameworks, right? So every client is different. There's no cookie cutter from client to client. So what we need to have is a good, clear vision, good, clear goals on what it is that we're looking to accomplish, what that end result is going to look like. What's the framework in how we solve those problems to get from point A to point B? And then empowering a really strong team of collaborators and doers to getting that job done.
Um, if you're looking for HubSpot tips and tricks, this is not the show. We're definitely working with our team to put together a show that can help you keep up with the frenetic pace of HubSpot updates. But if you're here listening to Dave, you're definitely getting a higher level, strategic advice and less what HubSpot update you should be using today. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I would say for me, it's not about all those little things matter, right? But they matter in terms of what's the solution, what's the overarching problem or process that we're trying to drive. And not all tips and tricks are going to be applicable, right? So it's about building the right process for your company and for your business. It's not about, oh, I should be using this tool or that tool. They're all great, but I think, all of the tools and all the tips and tricks and all of the updates apply to different companies in different ways. And driving the context, the interpretation of how those tools or tips or tricks should be used is what's going to be important strategically. And we're looking at an organization's health and both the satisfaction of not just their clients and customers, but also their stakeholders, their users, their team.
And Dave, one last question. I see a nice little bookshelf in your background. What's one book that you would love for me to read?
There's so many. One of my favorite books on that shelf, I've got a couple. One is called Ask More, which was written by a journalist who talks about how that approach of journalism applies to businesses, and it definitely it matters to us, right? Because I think the only way that you get good information out of any organization that you're looking to consult with is by asking the right questions, right? If you had an hour to solve a problem, spend 50 minutes thinking of the right questions to ask. And 10 minutes you'll ask the right questions and solve the problem. So That's a big one. Also love the growth gears, written by Pete Hayes. Another great book on, thinking about how to formulate your go-to-market strategy, right? And building processes within that. Another book that I really love. And a lot of it started with a book called Predictable Revenue that I read about 20 years ago. And the concept of how you can build a machine to drive predictable revenue is what set me on this path.
Now you have me. You've piqued my interest. How does that hold up throughout the years?
I think it's held up well across the years. It was originally written by a guy named Aaron Ross, who was a Salesforce consultant at that time, and this is long before HubSpot was a full-fledged CRM. But that concept of how to organize data and how to organize processes and how to organize things that can be measured and that are repeatable so that an organization can learn from what they're doing and iterate was probably the most valuable lesson I think that any company can take, right? Whatever you think you are, whatever process you think you have is going to change over time as your clients change, as technology changes, and as the market changes. And so for you to be able to build a machine that you can measure and then make the iterations and changes where they need to at the right times and right places, keeps that organization scaling and growing. So I think that book has held up well over time.
I love to hear that. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. And for anyone listening, thank you so much for being with us on this pilot episode of the Harvest ROI podcast. Make sure to leave any comment, any feedback. This is a pilot episode. We're looking at every single comment we receive. We're looking to refine the show and make it a show that you're interested in listening to. And Dave, if someone wants to reach out to you personally, what's the best way they can do that?
You can email me at dave@harvestroi.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dave. And thank you everyone for listening. Hope to see you in the next one.
Thanks, Selim.